Little-known Australian company Blackmagic Design is dominating this year's Oscars, with 5 out of the 8 films nominated for Best Picture using its technology. Blackmagic is used by the film and television industry's best, including right here at Your Money Live. Founder and Chief Executive Grant Perry joins us now from Melbourne. Grant, thank you so much for being with us. As we just said, there are 5 out of the 8 films nominated for Best Picture this year were shot using some of your equipment, a company that you started and run out of Port Melbourne. How does that make you feel?
Yeah, it's good. I mean, obviously, it's a we sell about 1.5% of our products worldwide in Australia, so we're very much an international kind of company. So, you know, a lot of it, how it feels is more tiredness. I mean, you're so busy just keeping up with everything. So, you know, it's always one of those things. Sometimes you've got to stop and sort of think about what you're really in the middle of. But it is, you know, ultimately it's just a lot of work, you know, so it's fun.
I bet. Grant, why are you so tired? I guess the other way of asking that is, why are your products so in demand? What are you doing that nobody else is?
Well, you know, we've organically grown. I mean, we started with a problem in the TV industry. You know, the equipment, like we bought an effect system in the 90s for a company I worked for, and it was $1.3 million. So, wow. You know, you realise pretty quickly that the creative people were just sidelined. It was really an equipment hire business. It wasn't a creative business. But television's a nice medium. I mean, you know, we're using it here. I saw some of my products when I came in. So, you know, we felt that, I kind of felt like what I wanted to do was sort of empower the creative people, and the way to do that was to eliminate the cost of the equipment. So we had to think about really how to do that. And so it kind of just grew from there as we added different product lines. And, you know, one of the products you're talking about is DaVinci Resolve, which is the system used for all the colour correction in Los Angeles on the movies. You know, we acquired that 10 years ago, but we've revamped it heavily. And I think if you just keep responding to customers' problems, you'll grow. I mean, you know, our customers are our heroes, right? So that's what we're totally focused on. It's a very customer-centric thing, and it will grow. You know, and it'll become. You know, if you've got a good idea, it'll grow.
Well, your business has already, in many ways, grown. I mean, I think some of the numbers here are staggering. I think I'm not wrong in saying that you turn over something like $300 million a year. You're in 7 countries. You employ like over 1,000 people.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you put that down to, apart from having a close eye on what your customers want?
Well, I think it's one of those things. I think it's got to start with a good philosophy. I mean, if you've got a really genuine philosophy underneath everything, I think one of the problems people can, or one of the mistakes people can make is they want to be noticed. So they'll make a product to sort of get noticed. But my feeling is you've got to have a much, much deeper philosophy. Otherwise, you can't be inventive. So you're not really creating anything new. The way I like to think about it is if I can invent something new and add on top of the economy that already exists. So I'm not doing a Coke versus Pepsi type thing, a market share thing. What I'm trying to do is create something new and add it into an economy that exists, or in our case, the TV industry. And then what you get is something more than what you have, and you get a bigger industry as a result. So if you really focus on the deep philosophy behind what the problem is, in our case it was sort of empowering creativity, that was the thing we were trying to do, it kind of sharpens you up. So I think you've got to have a really good philosophy underneath of the problem you're actually trying to solve, and it's got to be a deep problem. It's got to be a globally relevant problem too. It's not just something that is a copy of a thing you see overseas. It's got to be, you've got to take the lead intellectually in the, you know, sort of in a worldwide industry, in whatever industry you're in, make your customers, you know, really the centre of attention, and then all the products actually come from that. I mean, I say a lot, products will come and go, but the trust and the innovation that we do is sort of like sticks around forever. So it's really, I think it's getting the philosophy right would probably be the best answer to that question. Yeah,
I suppose there are so many entrepreneurs at home who would be listening to this probably with their notepad out, writing a lot of that down. For them and for us, can we rewind to when you started this business? What were you doing, and how did it all come about?
Well, I guess, I mean, yeah, if I was going to talk to my younger self, I think the key ingredient is absolute failure. I mean, you have to start with nothing. And then you sort of, it's almost like an analogy I used, you're walking through the desert with nothing but an idea of kind of what's wrong, and you've got to look at the world and go, the world seems strange to me. It seems hierarchical and conflict-based and heavy and kind of overly serious, and you've got to think about how can I make that world better? So where's the things that are wrong? What are the problems? And instead of whinging about them, you've got to then go, okay, now what do I need to do to sort of solve that problem? And that's all the energy you need. I mean, these days I think in business, I mean, and funny enough, business culture seems to have the same problems that the TV industry had. In the case of the TV industry, it's heavy, expensive equipment. In business, it seems to be an overly rigid sort of structure in the way people do things. You've got to allow your own culture to evolve. You've got to really focus in on problems. Your customers should be your hero. If they're not, then you're probably in the wrong industry. Go do something else. And then from that, you just let it lead you to where it's going to go. And you've got to be happy enough to not actually know what that is. I mean, you've got to be quite confident to know I don't know what the journey is, but that's like fine. You know, a lot of people try to hide from that and see problems as something bad, but problems are actually the kind of coal that fires the power station of your creativity. So just let it go to where it's going to lead you. And I think if you just zero in on the problems, you'll be okay. You'll be fine. Go for it, you know.
It's a really interesting message, being the kind of the passenger between problems, but I suppose there's so much leadership and decision-making that comes in for business owners. For example, you've still got a serious manufacturing base in Port Melbourne, which is something that is quite rare. So when did you decide to keep that going and not go offshore with everything?
Well, we did. Obviously, we make a lot of products. We've got a couple of factories overseas, and we've got, like, I think 10 different engineering groups around the world. The big thing that we suffered from, which again is another problem that you have and you solve it in any way you can, the problem we had in engineering is we can't get enough engineers here. We try and employ it's a privilege to work with all the guys I work with. I mean, you know, they're just brilliant, but I mean, there's only so many of those engineers. But also manufacturing, we couldn't get good leadership in manufacturing in Australia. I think once an industry suffers, a lot of factories here were really just building versions of something that was from overseas, and so we never really had a kind of globally relevant manufacturing base here. It was just an overseas investment thing. So I don't think we really had a passion and a drive for making things. But to me, you know, making something that sort of adds on. I mean, how much money can you make off property? I mean, the problem with the property markets is you're just going to get an inflation-based gain or a fight over who actually controls that property. I don't understand how you can make any growth from that, really the real growth, you know. But I think if you're manufacturing something, I mean, you can actually build something that's not property-based, so you've really got this magnification effect where you can add to an economy in a way that's not limited or bound by property. So we still have some manufacturing here, but it's really the specialists. So we make like high-end film scanners and big control panels for these big mixing desks, and we make them here still because they need a lot of engineering input. Like, you know, like the mechanics in a film scanner, for example, are, you know, quite insane. So you want to have all the engineering team around, but for a lot of the other stuff, we have other factories that we make stuff there. So it's a bounce. Different products are made in different locations depending on kind of what they are. I mean, products are like have their own character and they have their own needs. They're like children, you know, except they don't fight as much as real children. So, like, you know, what do they need? And they need kind of different factories and different marketing and all this sort of stuff. I mean, again, it's let things be free, you know, and follow where they, like, the product almost has its own character and you've got to let it find itself. And so where does it need to be made? How does it need to be sold? You know, there's a whole lot of things where you sometimes feel like you're following the product instead of controlling the product.
I think we've got a few...
Sense.
It does, it makes sense. I think it'll make a lot of sense to our technical directors who are probably nodding away furiously as they listen to you talk about the products that you're using. Before we do let you go, because we are running a little bit low on time, Grant, I've got to ask about what it's like to work with the Hollywood Tinseltown folk, and given that they're using a lot of your products, does it make you watch the films differently? Do you have a favourite one that we should all be looking out for that are using your products just right ahead of the Oscars?
Well, there's so many. I mean, I want to see Bohemian Rhapsody, obviously. That's one of the films that did it. That's actually one I haven't watched yet and I want to see it. I think it's exciting. I think the thing that's most exciting for me is that the DaVinci Resolve product, which we have, which is the colour correction and editing and now does audio and visual effects. The thing I like about that software is it's being used by Hollywood now on all these films, but you can download DaVinci Resolve yourself. If you're a 15-year-old, you can download that yourself and use it. I mean, it used to be $150,000 when we acquired the company, but with technology increase, you know, like improvements in like GPUs and things, you know, then we can now run it on Mac, Windows, and Linux, right? So you can just download this for free and use exactly the same product that they're using in Los Angeles. So if you are creative and you actually, like, you could be downloaded this week, and if you happen to have a knack for that, you could be working in Hollywood next week. I mean, we've removed this sort of class system that was in the TV industry, and it's purely based on creativity now. And the thing I love about that product, and it really is the philosophy of what our company is about, you can download that for free and use it right now, like today, like literally it's right there. YouTube videos all over the place on how to use it. And if you are creative and you know how to, you know, work with emotion, that's what colour correction is, right? It's the emotion of the images. You could be working in Los Angeles tomorrow, so the high-end Hollywood guys get a huge influx of fantastic people and they can grow, but a 15-year-old can actually download the product and learn. And they're all using the same tool. There's no glass ceiling. Just because you don't have any money doesn't mean to say you're stupid. You know, it just means you haven't succeeded yet. And our job is to make sure that you succeed. And that's how we get paid, right? When people buy other peripherals around DaVinci, yeah, they have to make money for us to make money. And so I think we're aligned with, you know, we need our customers, our new customers to succeed. We have to get people to grow and start making money themselves. So I think it's a fantastic relationship. I feel it's like really, like it's not only the philosophy of our company, but it's also exactly the right thing to do. And I think that's what, you know, everyone really should be doing. I mean, that's you know, we're making our industry bigger. and we're blowing people's minds and making people live out their dreams. So it's fantastic to be right in the middle of all that, you know.
Yes, fantastic. Many years of growth ahead, I'm sure. Grant Perry there
Absolutely.
from founder of Blackmagic Design. Thank you very much, Grant, for joining us.
Thanks for having me.